guess we are back. Finally. It's been a while there. There's been a lot going on in my life, and alhamdulillah, and everything's going towards directions I like. Maybe the podcast has been like up and down as far as consistency goes, and maybe I should be more attentive to uploads and such, but generally speaking, this is the tweaking phase, as we've always said, and trying to figure out what works best and, you know, what you guys actually want to hear. So for me, I personally love the interviews, so we're going to be tinkering around with that format, and hopefully this next week or so, I'm going to be getting my first roundtable session. So that's going to be just a group of guys and different topics. Maybe these are going to be shorter uploads, actually, you know, going over the weekly stuff, you know, week by week, and just staying a little bit more relevant, I feel. The other ones are long form, the interviews, and I like them because they get more personal, and you get to get an insight into somebody else's life and their story, and I get to learn a lot about interviewing on the fly while trying to mix, while trying to then post-production edit, and all of that stuff has been confusing, and figuring the right work cycle is a tricky thing, honestly. I have a lot of respect for those of you out there in post-production now, especially if you're doing everything from audio and, you know, media platform uploads and, you know, editing videos on the fly. So my respect has gone up because, guys, I do have some good news. One of the reasons we've been away for so long is I finally got the new video equipment in. I want to thank the guys that make the Ninja Blade products from Atmos. If you guys ever have a DSLR that you can't really use for more than 20 minutes or 25 minutes or some format that stops you at recording past 1 gigabyte on your SD cards before you have to restart and hit record again, well, the Atmos Ninja Blade is a blessing. It actually breaks that 30 to 20 minute barrier and lets you record endlessly for live events and such, and specifically for podcasts, resalvages the use from my DSLR. So, what does that mean? The upcoming episodes that I'll be recording from here on out will hopefully have video ready to go. I'm going to have a GoPro as well, so we'll try to get different angles and tinker around with that. But for now, we'll stick to also generating more content and actually getting a bit more diversity in the show. It's always been something I wanted ever since we started, and I did a bunch of like pre-recorded interviews. That was Ayad, Dave, also Ghazi, and now this is the last person that I had on my batch of pre-recorded. This was going to be with Weaam Sperinck. Weaam Sperinck. You're going to see me bumble the pronunciation. I'm sorry, Weaam. Again, I did it. But Weaam has been another good friend of mine that represents so many of the values and lifestyle goals I see so many Bahrainis and so many Middle Easterners and Gulf state people just embrace these days. And I hope that this is going to be an enlightening one-on-one for you guys. And it was for me, and I wish I had more time. Unfortunately, you can't tell, but I was in a rush during this recording simply because I usually have to turn off the air conditioning in the studio because I don't want you guys to hear the sound of that air conditioning. And it meant we were on a clock because I usually get the studio all cool right before we start. And I think I literally put Weaam in the hot seat for that one. So I didn't get to cover as many things as I wanted to, but there's definitely going to be part 2s coming up, and maybe even break down these formats into shorter 20-minute segments. You know, a bunch of you have been describing things you like, things you don't like, and there's been a lot of different opinions, actually. The girls love the one-on-ones, and they love it long, and some people don't. Some people prefer having a roundtable or even, 20-minute to 10-minute videos. But we'll see. We'll see what works best as you guys kind of work with me along the way. I just want to plug quickly that Weaam and a lot of her projects, whether they're at Melja or of her own accord, you can find those by following her Instagram tag. If I can just pull that up for a second. Weaam_BH. That is Instagram at Weaam_BH. WEAM_BH as in Bahrain. Alright, you guys, that's it. And enjoy the episode. I'll see you at the end for a little one-to-one again between the both of us.
Hello and welcome back again to Bedouin Banter. I'm your host Khaled Dosri. And guys, I'm excited to be in the studio today because finally, after, three guys in the studio, I'm going to be a bit patronizing right now. We almost sound like
got the token woman.
You have the token woman. And she's a halfie as well. So I check all the ethnic boxes as far as I'm concerned. It's perfect. So guys, help me in welcoming Weaam
Sperinck.
Yes. I just asked
Thanks for
her.
not trying.
I just asked her. You wouldn't believe me. I just forgot it again for the fourth time since I've known you. Weaam has been one of the many people I've kind of had the privilege to know in Bahrain because she is a creator, a collaborator. She is someone that is also one of the many people I want to have on the show as far as breaking all labels and boundaries and barriers. She's a cross-cultural kid. It's really hard to display or kind of give an idea of who you are. You tick all these boxes, but you don't fit in any box either.
Never try to put me in a box.
Never.
No, I will scratch your eyes out.
Scratch and slap. I can tell you that from the D&D campaigns I played with her. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so like you said, I'm a halfie.
Mm-hmm.
My father's English, my mother's Bahraini, but I grew up in Bahrain. I did live in a couple other places, like Canada, and I did live in the UK and Scotland for a while.
Right.
But most people will know me as the artist. I do a lot of art. I've always been into art since I was a kid, and now I teach art and do creative things on the side as well. Yeah.
You do. That's a bit humble, honestly. I have to say, she's being
put that on the label as well.
Yeah. So Weaam is multi-talented, so many disciplines, and the fact that she is an artist. Both. What kind of art would you describe yourself as?
Well, technically, I would put myself as an illustrator, but I do kind of fall under the category of doing some conceptual art as well because I really enjoy installations, working with video and things like that.
That's right. And just to plug quickly on for the show, you are currently curating one of the local, well-loved, and second
edition, yeah.
Of Collab.
Yeah,
Metaljet's Collab, which is sponsored by Red Bull, or is it considered sponsored? Is it hosted? Is it run by Red Bull? What is the distinction there?
Hosted by Red Bull, I guess, yeah.
And this kind of a collaboration, it's all about being blind to what it is the person you're working with, right?
Yeah, basically what it is just an encouragement to all the creatives on the island to be more attuned to the different disciplines there and the people who are available to work creatively. And basically we just create this platform so that different disciplines can get together and work together. But the first two editions have been kind of blind experiments because we know that there are egos on the island.
Yes.
And some people don't like to work together, but
we've
taken that out of there. Well, not my idea. I can't take credit for it, but it was one of the stipulations in the project. So we kind of worked with, in the first edition anyway, we worked with writers and visual artists instead of, what we got to do is we got the writers to create a piece of work specifically for the exhibition and get the artist to interpret it. So in the first case, yes, it was a blind and anonymous project, but I don't think I could call it a collaboration.
Right.
The second edition is more collaborative in the sense that now we've got the writers and the visual artists communicating.
Oh, so they actually are interacting with each other.
Yeah, we created this platform so that they can anonymously talk to each other and not, obviously there's rules, you can't say who you are, where you come from and things like that because we don't want them to guess each other's identity. You shouldn't know the gender or anything about the person.
Is that inevitable though, considering how small the island is? Is it 800,000 people live on this island?
We did our best to make it as secretive as possible. So they all talked to each other at the conceptual stage. They both had the same inspiration.
Right.
And I mean, you never know what's going to happen, but in some cases we had people who shared so well together and some people who barely,
Yeah, there's barely interactions involved.
Yeah.
I actually had the privilege of helping my wife's cousin, Sama, work on her video for the last one. Yeah, they shot that right here.
Were you steam
engineer? I didn't get the credit I wanted. She put me, I think, as a grip or something. I can't remember what it was. But I wanted steam technician or vapor engineer. Or she didn't, because I got the brilliant idea of her. She was shooting in my bathroom something to do with rebirth and this woman that was going through her pregnancy, and she was thinking about the cycles of life and all that. And one of the things she wanted was this effect that her looking at herself in the mirror with intense steaminess. So I was like, I'm just gonna get my steamer from the laundry stuff, and she was like, "This is genius, Khalid." And I'm stuck in little holes.
Yeah, you should see the picture of you under the sink, holding up the steam with such a determined face.
A mole man that's very proud of his skills in life.
And you're not a small man, so squeezing into that hole was hilarious.
It was the highlight of my career. Probably my last to work on any films. But yeah, let's get back to you were saying that there is the not just an ego problem, but there's this kind of, this is relates to identity in a way. This issue with people are very much so working based on not just collaborating with people they like or people they can learn from, but what kind of person matches their identity, whether or not they agree with that person, which seems very weird for me.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we say in our manifesto is leave your inhibitions, your ego aside, right, and embrace openness and collaboration. And it's just really important for them to just leave all those preconceptions to one side. And that's why we've done the blind experiment, because regardless of, ethnicity, religion, political values, you're going to work with this person. You're not going to know what they believe in.
Yeah.
You're just working from a creative level only about around this theme that we've given them. So it really just, it wipes the slate clean for them to just be creative and forget about all that other stuff.
See, I can understand where that comes from for a lot of people. It's very hard to get over the tribal aspect. Personally, when I grew up, I felt like there was a very big distinction between Bahrain and Saudi. Saudi is so huge population-wise compared to Bahrain. And you tend to, because of this, I told people before, this instinct to feel like, oh, kind of we're all in the same boat together. We're all being monitored and regulated in what we can do, what we can't do all together. So people are just desperate to find anybody to work with. So if you're a grip or a movie guy or something else, you just work with that person because of the desperation involved in that. So having that kind of a feeling, it was very different when it came to Bahrain. What made you feel like collaboration was something you kind of already culturally expected?
I guess I wasn't aware a lot of the time about cultural differences and things, because I did come from a mixed background and mixed household. And it wasn't until I went to an international school that I thought, oh wow, there are people from New Zealand and things like that, and they're all different. My best friend was Japanese or Pakistani, and I started to learn other languages, and you just all became you're all students, you're all global citizens. It didn't matter where you came from or what you believed in or what your family life was like. You just, you worked together. And I know friendship is a form of collaboration, I suppose. And that was really important to me, because before then, I guess I was kind of a little sheltered a little bit.
Right.
I think a lot of people who grew up in Bahrain feel a little sheltered sometimes.
But was that by your family or by your own choice? You wanted to disconnect from the greater communities? Because everybody I've had in the studio is an escapist socially in one form. Anxious. Yeah, socially anxious, socially awkward.
Yeah,
I was a
shy kid. Okay, I didn't make friends very easily. So when I did, it was just this one person who was really cool, and I'd bring them back home to hang out and stuff. And then there were some cases where it became glaringly obvious the differences that were there. I mean, one that
how old were you when this transition happened between first learning about the differences between people and then going to St. Christopher's school, the international school?
It was very close together, because I think my first inclination towards the differences is I was maybe 8 years old or something, and one of my friends that I used to go hang out at her house was Shia. And I didn't know that was a thing. I was like, oh, she's Muslim. So they're like, no, it's different. And I was like, why is it different? I don't get it.
And it's funny how they can't even explain, really. It's no, you should know they're different. Well,
I mean, I could see the differences. I'd go over there and her prayer mat would have this little stone on it. I'm like, what is that? What is that for? I never had one of those. But it's just, it was so strange to me to see, some maybe anxiety from my family, right, knowing that I had a Shia friend. It didn't occur to me at all to be.
But did that infect you, or did you feel like you were curious towards it? You wanted to know more?
I was curious, yeah. I mean, as I said, I wasn't aware before. So that was my first, inclination towards the fact that some people are a little close-minded.
Yeah.
But very soon after that, I went to the international school, and it just, you had all sorts of different kinds of friends from different places. My friends who were Indian, and I'd go to and see, the Hindu altar in their house and be so curious and interested in what they believed in. And it was never like a negative thing. I loved, learning about these different cultures and their different beliefs.
Ironic how it works out that sometimes people that are, I've seen this trend over and over again, people that are more socially anxious, or they don't fit in to, or are scared of involving themselves in social situations or getting close to people. There tends to be this thing that makes up for it on the other end, where you're also more curious. Yeah. So even though you're scared to go into the bubble of relationships, everything else, the thing that scares the other people, which is getting to understand why this thing is different, why the otherness is not something to be scared of, you're almost enticed, you're magnetized into finding out why do they believe in this? Why do they worship this? Why do they, Well,
I can kind of see a connection there where, people who are more social tend to just naturally fall into the patterns of their cliques and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're already surrounded by people who are like them. Whereas because we're the outsiders, we're the outcasts, we're just, leftovers. So we're all different from each other.
It's a way to cope with the boredom too, isn't it? It's like, can't talk to people. Not because they don't want to. They don't want me around.
That kid's alone. I'll go talk to him.
Yeah. Let me go figure out what this thing called Star Wars is. Maybe it seems alien.
He'll bring us together.
Maybe. But when did that start becoming a thing that you actively, let's say, fought against in your life? I know for me personally, I didn't. There was a lot of the overarching social stigma of not wanting to mix different things, and there's it wasn't even a lot of people, like I said this before in the podcast. A lot of people misunderstand growing up in Saudi to think that, it was some outside oppression, right? Okay, there was religious police, there was everything else, but really the number one thing that caused people to not want to interact on confusing topics or gray areas was the desire to avoid conflict. It was the best intentions of not wanting to avoid anybody getting hurt or being a misunderstanding. Yeah, and that's
insulting someone. There's it's very difficult because there's very much there are a lot of, like you said, little touchy areas, and you have to avoid them. And even on the podcast, you got to be careful what you say, because it's very easy to, cross the boundary into something that people find offensive. Because, come on, social media, everybody's offended by everything these days.
Oh yeah.
But in this case, these are very touchy subjects because they mean a lot to people.
Yeah, and there's also there's this kind of implication from our culture, which is the person pushing hard to break that barrier down, kind of wanting to find some resolution to this. They're causing unnecessary or unneeded. Waves. Yeah, you're causing ripples. That why would you do that? Why, you guys already get along in a very amicable way. Why would you want to with that? Don't worry about the swearing part. But we'll try to monetize some other way.
Like, why would you want to change the status quo?
Exactly.
Well, it's all about liberation. You want to be able to be individual and unique in yourself, so you can't just follow the sheep around you. Right. So I think, it happened for me, definitely.
How dare you, though, Weaam? How dare you cause strife and struggle and schisms? Our people are divided enough as it is. So that is kind of an interesting point, at least from a personal level. When you were talking to your friends, when you felt like you have a different kind of background than me. For example, I'm much more of a chicken nugget. We've talked about this term. I've explained to people globally what chicken nugget is. And the spectrum changes, and the perspective of who can label somebody not Arab enough is different from one person to the next. So
where's the scale for this?
I don't know. I want a chart. I want to see it. I want to tell, because I've honestly met... It's really ironic. Some of my Saudi friends, they're extreme Bedouins, and they're not that Arab as far as what they believe in or what people would label them as because of their unusual choices. So, for example, I said once a guy I knew was extremely into Japanese culture. And this is a guy that full bearded, he's short thobe. He's like the most Arab you're ever going to get, like poetry, history, but then he watches anime and like really cutesy anime as well. Oh my God. Like it's just an amazing like blend of two things. And whenever I see him, I remember he'd be a lot more open-minded compared to a lot of other people I knew because he had that curiosity we spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
He was always attracted to the otherness. He wanted to understand why things weren't the way they are and wanted to kind of maybe in a way validate his own beliefs, right?
We can gather from the anime that he was an outsider also.
But I think he just didn't know he was. That's the one distinction. But I loved him for it. And I would say, here's the thing though. Compared to, let's say, some of the UK kids that I met that are Pakistani or of Arab descent, whether North African or anything else, they double down on their Arabness and that patriotism. And
really?
Oh yeah, a lot of them, like I've been called out a bunch of times by them, as in, because I feel like from their side of it, they're trying to relate to something that they feel very distant about. So they need to overcompensate by showing, look how Arab I am.
Yeah.
At least that branch of it. Now, you are somebody I've met that is firmly in the middle of all of that. Like, I don't know how moderate you're considered or if this is a scale from one side to another in the spectrum, but you seem to me to be somebody that doesn't necessarily, you relate to that side of your world because you grew up in a much more Arabic setting, and then you went to a Western setting or international setting. But you still, the content you provide is balanced on either end, you would say? You're not one of the kids that would want to disavow, for example, anything in your art that has anything to do with your culture. You would try to blend both and see where a new truth might emerge, maybe, perhaps.
You're just putting words in my mouth now.
Am I? Go ahead, disagree. What do you got?
Well, I don't know. It's actually surprising for you to say that I'm like smack bang in the middle because I never thought I was. I definitely think that, people have called me a chicken nugget even though it's completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
The reason is that quite a long time ago, I kind of turned my back on sort of my Arabic culture in a way. As soon as I became a teenager, I spent less time with the Arabic family. I spent less time with Arabic friends. I didn't have any anymore. I had friends from all over the world. And slowly but surely, I lost my Arabic. I kind of have it, but it's... every time I talk, it's just a mess. But
who gets to click? What are the check boxes you would click on to say, well, this is what makes you an Arab? Because if we're going to assume that, let's say, if we're going to say, well, the agenda here is to say who's the most Middle Eastern. Well, it's definitely the Sumerians. It's definitely the Assyrians. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Cultures that have been around for thousands of years, and we don't associate us being closer or distant from them, right? Now, from that same regard, I see influence. You do have influence in your work that is based on, Arabic culture.
Yeah, but not in the way that you think.
But it is. I kind of feel... am I wrong to assume that it bridges at least barriers in some way?
In some ways, yeah. It's more about a conflict more than a bridging.
Well, then to me, a conflict ends with a resolution at that point. You're asking people to see two sides of an equation, right? You're asking them to see things from both spectrums.
Yeah. And
you're criticizing how there is maybe not a connection there. I see that as trying to fill the connection. It's a harsh way of doing it, maybe.
Okay.
But it's still filling it.
Well, let me just try to explain my work then, because while I was doing my master's degree, I definitely was interested in trying to represent my identity, or not maybe not my identity, but people who could relate to me, their identity too. And it was always about sort of, where does your identity come from? What is the scale by which you would, measure identity? And it was a question of, okay, what do you believe? Where do you come from? What is your nationality? What language do you speak? All of these things people think is their identity, but to me, it's more than that. It's more of a, it's your essence, your interests, your experiences, your friends, people you keep around you. I think that's so much more important than, where you grew up, because, you didn't have a choice in that matter. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Does it matter what passport I have?
Well, doesn't that automatically kind of fall into the category I was saying before, which is, if you feel like there is no point in trying to label what makes somebody an Arab or what makes you culturally close to a certain identity, then you're part of a new identity that is this global identity. Yeah. It crosses barriers, it crosses cultures.
And transcultural.
Yeah. So wouldn't that make you automatically, or do you feel like you don't have a right to say, I am as Arab as the next person?
I would never say that. I think when they ask me, where are you from? I never answer, I am blah.
You don't?
I don't have an answer for that. I just say I am Weaam.
That's mostly how I look at things from my perspective. But to put you on the hot seat about this subject, if somebody was from, let's say, the UK or the US, and they asked your opinion on, from Middle East social commentary to politics to whether or not somebody should be PC around you about something, do you ever feel the need to not talk about those because you feel like you're just representing yourself? Or do you feel there's a part of you that says, well, I shouldn't be representing an entire culture and neither should anybody else?
That's a difficult question. Yeah. I definitely find myself defending my culture a lot because people will have the wrong idea, and I'll just tell them from my experience what I have seen, what I know.
Right.
But I do feel like I'm defending something that I'm not really a part of. So it is difficult for me. I want it to be fair. That's all.
Yeah. Were you ever critical around? Because I've seen this effect. Maybe you know it. There's this Arab cultural kind of tradition we have where when we're between ourselves, it's okay to criticize us, right? But when we're showing
you can't use that word, but I can.
Yes, there's that, a little bit of that. So
yeah.
and there's almost extreme kind of painting it as because we're responding to maybe bigots or just general ignorant people that might not understand our culture. Mm-hmm. So we feel the need to overcompensate and explain to them why they're not seeing it right. But a lot of my friends might not paint the black image of the criticism we actually tell ourselves. We won't let Westerners know about it because it's like, well, we don't want to air
keep it in the family.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like you don't want to air the dirty laundry out, right?
I mean, that's the case in every culture, I think. But I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, I haven't been a part of it a lot. I know like in this group we might, joke around about stuff. But in the end, I don't have that many Arabic friends. It's weird that now I do. But you're all, you're not typical Arabs.
Well, nobody is a typical Arab. That's my firm belief.
Thing. You've always got that image in your head of what a typical Arab is.
But it doesn't. It's kind of the point of the whole show.
No, I'm telling you, my brother is.
Oh, is he? Okay, I want to have him on the show. I'll find his weakness. I'll dissect him.
He's a Warcraft fan too. So,
is he?
Yeah.
See, it's so weird. Like even a lot of people try to look for some logic or stereotype to what. For example, if you're a geek or a gamer, automatically you're a liberal. Not true.
Not true at all.
If you're into the drama or the arts or anything else, or if you're an intellectual, you could be a liberal. Not true. All these things...
you're more likely to be.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop you in the Middle East, not you as in you, Weaam, but it doesn't stop an intellectual from thinking that, well, no, I am defending the grey, I'm defending the middle ground, and therefore I'm not going to take any positions on anything and obfuscate something to the point that there is, just me representing ideas that I won't take any firm position on one way or another. So if that person can easily defend conservative values in one way and then easily defend liberal values in another way, I don't consider them a liberal.
Okay.
I consider them neutrally and firmly and moderate in the middle. So
chaotic neutral.
Very much so chaotic neutral, maybe even true neutral for all I know. But I don't necessarily see that trend. I've always thought growing up that I'd see a trend where, if you are more liberal, maybe Star Trek. Maybe.
See, now you're talking about what I love.
Well, this is something I realized it could connect here and bring about something more clearly. There's some stuff that does have extreme social commentary that I will notice more Arab liberals going towards. Mm-hmm. But if you like, Star Wars or Warhammer 40K, or D&D, that is not a representation of who you are.
That's fantasy, man. Star Trek was always something that was near and dear to my heart. Well, not always. I mean, I didn't really get to know it until I went to college because it just didn't come in Bahrain TV. Yeah.
But I thought it did at one point.
Oh, maybe it did, but I just missed it.
Maybe the old one, not
my
next
parents
gen.
never bought cable ever. They were so stingy.
Well, no, Orbit was overpriced, to be fair.
Oh, for sure. Really we never had that, man.
Yeah, piracy all the way.
No, not even. We just had Bahrain TV. MTV.
Is this 90s?
No, NBC.
Is this early 90s or is this 95, 94?
Late 90s into the 2000s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that would be about right, because you only had Aramco and Channel 55, which is the Bahrain channel.
Bahrain
yeah,
TV.
Exactly. But I feel like Star Trek was, at least for my mom, a bunch of other people, the 1960s Star Trek, the original. It was a lot of it highlights the ways in which you can talk about social issues indirectly without the sensitivity. Yeah. Because it's now you're portraying something that isn't
an issue anymore.
Yeah.
It's a future, like idealistic future where everybody just gets along. There's no poverty, there's no war, except with other alien races, which just don't get it, because they're still, evolving and changing their ways. Like, okay,
that's offensive.
Klingons are very warrior-like.
Why are the brown Klingons the ones that can't get their act together? Why?
I know, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. They're getting a lot of I think it was what is it? Kirk Shatner. He's getting
Kirk Shatner.
The Kirker. William Shatner is getting a beef, I think, recently for saying that people are too sensitive and that they're PC, and they're like, "How dare you, sir? Star Trek was all about social commentary, and you don't understand people's sensitivities." And he just turned them off. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but
he was defending Star Trek. Like, what was he defending?
He was like, "Well, it's a show, people. Calm down." He was just talking. He had, I think, some commentary to do with something controversial. I don't know, but it didn't. It's probably one of those things where he just said an offhand remark, and people jumped on him as if he's supposed to represent.
Yeah, people are so nitpicky these days.
Yeah, they're willing to say, well, you are a beacon to your group, so you should represent your values. Do you feel like you ever are put in that kind of a pressure though, like you personally?
No, but I don't think Kirk should have been either. It's Spock who was the beacon.
Oh, he's dead now, so he gets to get away with it. Yeah, sorry about that. Leonard Nimoy, rest in peace. But yeah, I do feel like a lot of times whenever I'm talking about this issue to it's funny because I'll be talking to a Westerner, explaining to them their ignorance about the region, how they're really painting the issues in black and white, and there's a lot of nuance in between. And a lot of my friends that are patriotic and very tied to their culture would be very happy about that. They'd be like, "Well, thank you. You're defending us. Yeah, go ahead. Tell them. Stick it to the white man, or stick it to."
Then you turn it on them, and be like, "Be more tolerant and stuff." He's like, "I wasn't defending you."
Because there is this like the me against the world type of thing, right? We're both bad guys, or we're both flawed
us
together.
And them.
Yeah, us versus them. So I always kind of try to remind people that even if I'm, having these talks with people on the show, I don't represent anybody but myself. Same with you, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you do when people expect you to kind of represent your culture?
Oh, I hate controversy and like political and social questions like that. I just generally shy away from them because I'd rather talk about art and things that don't require this kind of conflict.
All right.
I don't enjoy it. I mean, I have conflict in my art, but it's done in a very, subdued way. Nobody gets angry. Nobody gets pissed off at each other.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I've just never been one for confrontation in general.
So would you consider art as the purpose of art? So a bunch of people would say comedy's purpose is to criticize, no matter what it is, even if you're laughing at it and it's inclusive. I think it was John Cleese that said it was always going to be criticism about something. Yeah. Because you're criticizing something that we're flawed in, that we all know we're flawed in, and we want to laugh about it.
Yeah.
Does your art represent that to you as well? Or do you feel like there's boundaries where you don't cross or things that you don't want to be touching? Or
Well, it's difficult because only in this, particular environment and climate you avoid certain things because you don't want to hit a nerve, And in my previous work, I'd created sort of a conflict of identity, and there was a lot of questions about who are you and who do you want to be, and who are you, who you make yourself to be, or are you what they made you. So I, from a personal point of view, I felt very much sort of suffocated by Arabic culture and being made to be a certain way or being told I should be a certain way and wanting that liberation. So the conflict was to be resolved with freedom. And I guess it's kind of ironic that in the end I didn't really have the freedom to express the concept completely because people would be offended by that idea. Yeah. But I left it open-ended so that people, would take those questions and study, the imagery and take it the way they want to take it. I had one woman who is originally Palestinian, who broke out into tears in the middle of the installation because she felt like it was all about her and leaving, her home behind, and what does she become now? And she was just really touched by it.
Oh, I know a lot of Palestinians that's a really big issue for them. Identity is a constant struggle. It's almost like a Catholic guilt level. It's really they beat themselves up about it the whole time because they have this twin responsibility of leading their own lives in other countries where it's not Palestine. They might be in the U.S. and I've met them and they feel really bad about it. They feel like they've somehow betrayed their culture, betrayed their people, or betrayed it. So they always don't know where they stand, and it's one of the saddest things for me to see because they're these successful people. They can be pillars of society, graduating from highest institutions, creating work, but then they feel like they don't know where they stand with anybody.
They feel like transient identities where they're not quite where they come from, but they don't belong where they are either. It's a really interesting topic itself.
Yeah, I think I'd need to get somebody in here who is actually Palestinian
or someone who's left their home and changed.
Yeah, get that little perspective on that. That's another one. Now, back on track. If you had to say what would be the biggest struggle when it comes to, because using art as kind of this delivery mechanism for challenging people's ideas and making sure you're also tolerating some other people that you might not agree with and you're respecting their points of view. Do you feel like you ever do that on a social level when you deal with people? Because if you're leading a community of people like you do in art, you're setting up installations, you have to kind of be a bit of a diplomat. Do you, from a personal level, do you feel like it's a challenge to kind of tolerate certain points of views or be honest and blunt about what they can and can't do? Because there are people that are a lot less politically diplomatic than you are.
Yeah, I suppose.
That always want to burn the system down without seeing the consequences.
It's funny because I feel like that's something everybody is already prepared to do because they live in the society and they know that there's certain things they can't say or do. So they've automatically censored themselves for the most part. I've never had an issue with anybody's content of their work. And when we do work together, it's very much a, leave your baggage at the door type of thing because we're working as creatives. We're all on the same level. It doesn't matter where anybody comes from. Like the first collab we had a Palestinian woman.
It's not the same woman, is it?
No, different woman. And she was quite different to the person that she was linked up to, but they worked so well together. In fact, they turned out to be friends who didn't know that they were actually working on the same project and stuff. Everybody just works together well, and
so that's a benefit of the collab. But of
the blind collab,
blind collab. But is it your experience that you have to? Have you ever had? Because I've dealt with this in Saudi, where I see one extreme where people self-censor, and they develop this issue with being able to express themselves out of fear. Like I have it right now. You have it. But we have the benefit.
We have the fear.
We have the fear. We have the benefit of editing as well. But even having that and worrying about all these little issues we're getting into, do you feel that there's people I met that are the other extreme, and they could be young, about 18, college to 25-year-olds, and they're very smart, very opinionated, very expressive, and they still don't really understand the consequences of any actions they do. Yeah. And their first goal, whether it's derivative work or whether it's just, outrage for the sake of outrage, or subversive for the sake of being subversive, isn't that a constant theme? I've had to deal with it all the time.
Well, it's not so much in my collab sort of art curation work. It's more in as a teacher, I teach, teenage girls who are all doing the IB program, and I push them so hard to come up with really interesting concepts from their point of view, their perspective, and to have a voice. But then I kind of have to silence them a little bit because within our school and within the IB program, you're limited by ethics. Yeah. There are ethical guidelines on what you can discuss, and as long as it's appropriate to your environment, then you have all the freedom in the world, but you have to be careful of other people's values. So I do sometimes find my students will just go that little bit too far, and I have to pull them back a little bit and just make it a little bit more abstract so that people don't get it straight away type of thing. But, it's fair enough if you want to, explain it in detail in your sketchbook, but the artwork should not, fully insult anybody.
Do you feel like you ever get like stabbed a little bit in the gullet when like someone would be like, "Teach, you're part of the system. You don't get it. Burn down the machine."
They would never say that. I'm their home dog.
Yeah.
They've called me that. I'm Miss Home Dog.
So it's not. Then you don't feel like there's a little bit of betrayal of yourself or anything else when you try to rein them in. You don't.
I mean, they live in the same society. They know the exact same thing because they know that their parents are going to come to see this exhibition at the end of the year. They're not going to put anything.
Yeah, but let's be you teach in St. Chris or
no? I teach at Chickahassa Girls School.
Okay, so that's still some people that are could be coming off from a little bit of a well-off background, I guess. Say some of
they're
them.
all well-off, well, for the most part, and they come from that background where the values, the Islamic and Arabic values are like they're a huge part of the school, and their lives itself. So,
but if you have a well-off background combined with being in a religious school, and you kind of maybe resent it for a little bit, because there's a bunch of my friends that went through that. Thank God I didn't ever feel like that, but. I know friends that were very, having opinionated liberal beliefs about, screw the system or whatever it is that they want. They feel like they have to rage against, machines or whatever. But those kids will very much so speak out loudly and in spite of whatever it is you say because they feel like they're in that kind of a school. You know what I mean? Very counterculture.
I don't know. I think... I'm going to say something sexist in a second.
Yeah, go ahead, yes.
I think it's because you came from like a co-ed school. The girls are a little bit more subdued. They're a little careful about how they word things and how they subvert in their own way. So a lot of them are more interested in expressing themselves and not necessarily, shouting out to the heavens, the negatives and things like that. They do show, different social aspects. Definitely a lot of them are feminists.
How old are these kids?
Like 16 to 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like at that age and they already show like an understanding of like...
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's a lot of feminist students who, that's their entire theme for the entire 2 years that they're doing it. They're just studying all the ways that they're not equal in the society.
But
and
they're very sociopathic about how they kind of like subdue and play the game and make sure they're not really...
I think that, to be honest, we're not talking about something that is unknown. It's it's very obvious in our environment that, to some extent, women are not given the same liberal sort of luxuries that men are, and these are girls who come from families where their brother who's younger than them can go wherever he wants and nothing nothing's an issue.
Them.
But they have to have a chaperone, they have to go to school and come right back and all this stuff, so they have a lot to say about that.
Reputations can be tarnished overnight.
Very easily, yes.
For most of you that don't know this from a global community, because we are kind of making this show for you guys to understand, there's one thing that's very common here that girls have to worry about a lot more than the guys do, which is if girls misstep and accidentally do something that they might regret that will tarnish their reputation. I know a lot of you jump to the idea of honor killings and all this other crap.
Oh my God.
This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about social stigma they have to live with for the rest of their lives that just affect who they get to be, what social circles they get to be accepted into, and what they don't, the opportunities that are no longer available for them, they're just gone forever because of one misstep, maybe where, reputation gets tarnished for them doing something that is not appropriate for a girl to do. However, for guys, we have this kind of get out of jail free card where it's almost expected.
Golden armor.
Yes, it's almost expected. Like we have +3 to our AC.
+1 for magic.
We can mess up. We can, do things that we should be regretting, But short of like killing a tiger on Instagram, people just let you get away with anything almost here.
Even that gets swept under the rug eventually. I think a man in the society can basically do no wrong.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And then a girl has so many pitfalls that are available to her.
Yeah.
So that's why they have to be more careful. And that's why they're more subdued about what they say and what they do. But they can speak out as a woman about the experiences that they have. So that's what they mostly focus on. So I have girls who talk about, having a voice in the society, having the freedom to move as they wish, to do what they wish, to study out of the country, because some are not allowed to do that because the family doesn't feel comfortable sending them to another country. They don't,
and they're crazy qualified as well. It's so annoying to see.
It's horrible because some girls are just like stuck studying here when they have so many more opportunities going to the UK or the US or wherever they want to go.
I can't remember what the statistic is, but the graduation rate in Saudi for girls being a lot more qualified than guys was just insane. It was through the roof. Mm-hmm. And yet those degrees and that brain power, that resource doesn't really get utilized in any way. Yeah. So it was one of my beefs with just from me. I'm speaking about myself here, guys. Remember that. My beef with, my background in Saudi and other GCC countries, which is we have a lot of qualified people with what I consider a resource. It's no different than oil or gas or, whatever it is you want to compare, a greater economy. And we're losing a lot of these great people, these great minds, because they're forced to choose. Mm-hmm. Do I stay with my family and friends and my culture that I love, but not get to be me and utilize my potential to the fullest? Or do I leave, feel like a traitor, abandon my heritage, my family, and go to a country which is more tolerant? Like, I remember there was this statistic in Saudi. It was something, it made a big deal in the news where it was like, they came back with a study about how many Saudis were not coming back after living abroad and like deciding to live in the UAE or some other Gulf Arab states, and they wouldn't go back to Saudi. And and like the government wanted to put a research into finding out why.
And how to bring them back.
Yeah, I don't even know how to bring them back.
How do we bring our boys back?
Bring them back. All the women, all the men. We need them. We need you.
Well, it's funny. I have that situation even just within my family.
Really?
Like I told you, my brother's like the typical Arab, and then my other brother,
which is hilarious, by the way. Just the flip side between you two.
He's got the beard and the thobe and the wife, But he's my other brother is like the complete opposite. He's one of those boys who went to study in the UK and never came back.
Not just study. He's a freaking genius.
He has a white girlfriend. Come back and marry an Arab girl. This is what my grandmother says constantly. She just wants him to come back and be like, wahashna, come back. You have to stay here. You have to get a job and get married in Bahrain. Everything has to happen in Bahrain. Yeah. And he's, obviously he's moved on and he doesn't feel comfortable here. So why make him do that?
And by the way, guys, I know for a lot of people, when we say this, you have this typical image of, he's a spoiled liberal kid that wants to go enjoy partying and
talking about.
I know, but wait.
I want to say,
tell them who your brother is and what kind of qualification he has.
Okay, so my brother is 2 years younger than me. Went to the same school as me. He got the Crown Prince scholarship to get his entire university degree paid for. He went to Oxford University in the UK. You've heard of it, right?
Yeah, okay.
And studied pure maths for 3 years and then did his master's in it and was offered a grant to do his PhD, but, turned it down because he didn't feel like it.
Yeah, because that's what geniuses do.
Yeah, he's just like, I just want to focus on my music right now.
But whether he does or doesn't, I feel like it's a common misconception for people in back home, in the region, where people assume, okay, maybe statistically speaking, the majority of people that do seek out other cultures and decide, I don't feel welcome in the Middle East, maybe they are artists, right? But we're losing a lot of engineers. We're losing people like your brother. We're losing people that are qualified. They would be able to contribute in society in so many different ways that would improve everybody's life for the better. But because they feel trapped and forced to make this choice, they're always going to choose the culture that makes them feel more welcome
and more comfortable
for being who they are. So do you find that is something you can almost predict when you look at your students? Or
Oh, definitely. There are some who fall under the not typical and clearly has a potential to go further and would definitely flourish in a different culture that was a bit more open.
Right.
And then there's others who are, perfectly happy in their own society and are very strongly connected to their family, their religion, and are extremely intelligent and are going to do well anyway, but those opportunities overseas are just not going to be there for them.
Yeah.
So in a way, they are slightly negatively affected by that. But
does that relate usually, or kind of translate into some form of like giving up on life, giving up on? Because that's kind of what I went through. Honestly, I feel like I wasted a lot of my time to do what I did, which is just kind of be like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this. And I'll just go into escapism. I'll go into my geeky stuff. I'll go into video games and all that.
It makes it, tolerable to be in a place that you don't want to be in.
It's
maybe
the easier choice.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't have to fight with my parents. I don't have to fight with my culture or anything else. And we can all get along as long as I just go to this invisible world that doesn't exist. And we're all happy, right?
Yeah, because you control that world that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, I do.
And you can't control this one.
Can't. So do you feel like you lose some of your students that are bright and brilliant to escapism? Not that they wouldn't come out of it. They could at some point in their lives, but any early on potential might be gone. And they're just, spending... Instead of their studies, instead of focusing on their future, they decide, I'm just going to focus on a video game future.
Well, yeah, there are definitely those students around, but it's more, they escape into the world of social media, the illusions of that world. They're so obsessed with appearances and looking like they're having the time of their lives, and money is just growing on trees and stuff like that, that becomes a bit of an obsession for them, and definitely they lose a few opportunities. They don't work as hard as the other girls who don't care so much about that stuff. But that's just, that's the case in this time, these millennials.
Yeah.
I mean, I say these millennials, but I technically am a
we
millennial.
Are, yeah. Well, we don't know where we are.
Don't feel like it, but yeah.
We're supposed to be 80s kids somewhat because everything showed up late culturally, references in movies and all that was like 5 years later on, so I technically should be an early 90s 85 kid, but then I'm not, because I saw the beginning of the internet as well and all that other stuff, but weird. So give us a hopeful note here. We've shown people a lot of the different spectrums and perspectives that kind of exist. What would you say is the one thing that you feel like is changing compared to how it was before when you were growing up, where, whether it's on a social level, economic level, whether it's even the powers that be?
I can't speak for the powers that be,
and
but...
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. That was just me saying it for the sake of saying it, but never talk about them.
We do not speak of them.
We do not speak of those who shall not be named.
I think one thing that's really changed, at least from my perspective, is that more people have a voice. And maybe it's because of social media and communication technologies, but... I definitely see a surge in the arts in Bahrain, and people are more able to voice and express themselves, maybe with some, some reservations and some limitations, but for the most part, they are able to express themselves and communicate their ideas. I just think that, at least from my perspective, when I was here 10, 20 years ago, that that wasn't so available, that wasn't so accessible, and now it's a much easier to get your ideas out there.
That's good to hear. I feel like that was the one hope I have for kids now, is that they get to see other versions of people just like them, showing them a better way.
And that's exactly what you're doing right now. This is your platform for getting your ideas and our ideas out there.
Hopefully, because I remember a time where I was dying to hear somebody that was like me or was me that would give me hope that there was something better. So if I am giving you hope or just driving you closer to insanity, let us know and give us your feedback. I think we're we're over our time. We're about 50 minutes in. So that was great. Thank you, honestly, Weaam, for being here.
Thank you so much, Khaled.
I would like to have you here a lot more. And maybe I can figure out why every time I record my mic sounds different. But we're getting there. Anyway, if there's anything you want to plug, I don't think you have anything to plug today. Do you want anything on social media or?
By the time you've aired this, it's too late.
Yeah, collab is going to be done. But guys, remember that collab doesn't happen here. It is hosted by Malja's Red Bull kind of facility. Weaam has plenty of projects to be had. So if you're in Bahrain, get in touch with me, leave feedback or comments, and I'll point you in the right way. Everybody out there, take care.
Okay, you guys, that's it. I just want to thank Weaam once again and remind you guys you can follow her on Instagram with the handle at Weaam_BH. And thank you for tuning in. I'd just like to remind you that please, if you do enjoy the show, your support is much appreciated. You can show your support by liking, sharing, subscribing. And don't forget that if you do subscribe and you want to hear the show the second it's released or at your own time without having to go search if a new episode is out, just hit that little bell underneath the subscribe button. That'll notify you immediately. Just a little hint of a reminder that we're on. All right, you guys, you have a good one, huh?